Hi folks, it's Chris. Welcome back. Today we want to take a look at the newly published smart telescope from DWARFLAB called DWARF II. It's supposed to be a multi-purpose, all-in-one and easy-to-use imaging system suitable for multiple imaging scenarios. But most importantly for us, and that's the reason why I review it here on this channel, DWARFLAB claims that with included star tracking, focus, auto alignment and imaging stacking, DWARF II is a smart telescope designed for effortless astrophotography, meant especially for beginners. So we want to answer the question, is DWARF II a valid entry-level astrophotography telescope for beginners, capable of closing the gap between the night sky and the beginner, as they claim on their homepage? Let's find out. One thing to be clear about right away, DWARFLAB sent me all the hardware for free and asked me to review the product here on my channel for you folks. But I had no editorial influence in this video whatsoever, and this was important to me. But they also asked me to maybe send them additional thoughts to their product or maybe some ideas and wishes on how to improve the product from an astrophotography standpoint. So if you have any ideas, wishes or comments, put them right down in the comment section below. I think this is a great possibility to help forge a cool new astro tool. And if you are down there, I shamelessly ask you to hit that like and subscribe button to further increase the impact of this channel and get more folks into astrophotography. It's, like always, very much appreciated. Okay, so let's start by quickly going over the specifications of DWARF II. It's a mobile imaging system connected to your smartphone app using two camera systems on the front. One camera is a telephoto lens and the other is more like wide field, like your smartphone. The telephoto has a much bigger aperture of 24mm and a field of view comparable to 600-ish mm of regular cameras. Given the size of DWARF, the physical focal length obviously can't be over half a meter long. That's because the actual focal length is just 100mm, folded by a prism to use the entire length of the device, a very clever design choice there. But given the tiny sensor, the field of view is comparable to, say, a normal telescope range. DWARF II uses the Sony IMX415 StarVis sensor, and while I'm not a dedicated sensor expert, the Sony StarVis has positive reviews when it comes to dark imaging environments, so seems like a reasonable choice there. The device is best placed onto a tripod and moves in two directions, up, down, left and right, either controlled through the app or autonomously. This mount type is called Alt-Az mounts, and it's, together with the equatorial mounts, one of the two main telescope mount systems out there. One nice hardware feature though is the replaceable battery pack. The capacity has lasted me for about 2 to 3 hours of intense imaging sessions in the freezing cold of the night. Okay, a movable camera system with two very different cameras. What are the use cases of this design? First, there's the normal daylight photography. I will cover this in another video because I want to focus on the astro side of things in this video, but in short, you can use the wide-angle lens to aim the telephoto lens to capture animals, birds, buildings or whatever. Very zoomed, and you can use the mosaic mode to capture a panorama stitched by dozens of telephoto images to generate a gigapixel panorama. More on that later. More importantly for us nighttime folks, we can use the movable axis to track the movement of the night sky and use the telephoto lens to capture astronomical objects, sun, moon, planets, star cluster, nebula, galaxy, and DWARFLAB claims that this is pretty much without any effort, hence smart telescope. And that would be truly interesting. So it's finally time to unbox the new baby. DWARFLAB included DWARF II itself, a nice little tripod, a fitting bag, the battery pack, a magnet filter holder adapter, one astrophotography UHC filter for deep sky objects, two solar filters, one SD card, a smartphone micro telescope gimmick, whatever, and yeah, that's it. Okay, let's fire up the app and DWARF II and have a quick look at the basic functionalities. Opening the app will look like this. You access four things. First, the settings, weirdly hidden behind a user icon, whatever. Here you can get to camera settings and connecting settings. Not gonna touch that for now. A link to the homepage of DWARFLAB for tutorials, that's neat. Your album with images taken. Well, right now this section is a little complicated in my opinion. DWARF II doesn't download the images directly to your smartphone, but stores them on the SD card. That's nice. But instead you can preview them here, or download them onto your phone album, which you can see here. And that might take some time. And after that you can export the downloaded files to your camera roll if you feel like. Just to be clear, we won't use that extensively because I'll just grab the SD card and straight on copy all the folders onto my PC anyway. And this is pretty neat because all imaging sessions are sorted in folders. But if you want to show a certain shot to your friend via smartphone, I figure the export option is a valid thing though. And this button connects your phone with DWARF II. There is a necessity for Bluetooth and Wi-Fi being turned on, and DWARF II uses both of them because, well, I don't know. But after that, and after a while, it connects and we get to this screen. This here is the overall imaging screen of DWARF II that we will spend most of our time in. Here we have a bunch of different buttons, so let's go over them very quickly. This here will quit the camera. This one will open or close the wide-angle camera. You need to know that those pop-up menus are overlaying. You can't control one under the other, so make sure to close them after usage to avoid confusion. This here opens the camera settings like exposure time, gain, IR filter, brightness, etc. Tap to open, change value, tap to close, very easy. This green button down there is the gamepad-like stick for moving DWARF around. Normally you will use the wide camera to aim and the telephoto lens to take the images. It's a bit, you need some moments to get used to it, but it works pretty okay. This button here is for the focus menu. A plus-minus menu pops up and you can alter the focus. During daylight you can easily double tap the screen and DWARF will autofocus. That is somewhat strangely loud and a bit too slow for my taste, but overall it works pretty reliably. This here is the album we mentioned before. This is the capture button and this is the feature icon. Pretty small, but pretty important too. Because each imaging mode has different special options hidden behind this button. In daylight imaging mode it's only the object tracking, but whatsoever, we want to move on to Astro-modus. So let's actually take an image of a deep sky object. First we choose the filter. If we want any, say the UHC filter for nebula in light polluted areas, we can screw them onto those little cute goggles and magnetically clip them in front of DWARF II camera. I was always afraid of them falling off, but they never did, so then we need to focus. DWARFLAB recommends focusing DWARF during daylight to a very distant object. If you miss that step, you can set the exposure to 1 second and gain to 100 and point to a very bright star. You can manually turn DWARF around and point it in the beginning of the imaging session, so no worries here. I always used Jupiter's moon to focus on them and it worked pretty well. But focus is a bit fiddly overall. And DWARFLAB really needs to improve on this point to build a reliable out-of-star curve focus routine here. So all you need to do is press one button, focus, and that's that, and let the smart telescope do its thing. But we instead, after finishing focus, we press the feature button and start setting DWARF II up for our imaging session. So let's go. If you are in focus, you need to set DWARF into the home position and point the Alt axis up to an angle where DWARF has a free line of sight in the night sky in, let's say, nearly every direction. The altitude shouldn't be too high to gain precision. At least that's what I assume, given the normal alignment routines I'm familiar with, but nearly anything will do. Simply press calibration and then DWARF II will slew left, center, right and take 3 images. Compare the observed stars against an internal map, and since it imaged points on a circle, it can measure its current inclination and the rotation, and that's everything it needs to know to match the internal map and the real sky against each other. And this procedure works fairly fast. Worst that can happen to you is that you need to redo it because DWARF points, let's say, towards a wall or a tree and hence cannot figure out where it is. But as the procedure is so fast, like only a few seconds or something, you can easily redo it. After calibration, we can crank up the exposure time to 15 seconds, but stars will still trail. I was tricked by that, thinking DWARF II didn't do its homework and calibration was flawed. But it isn't, it's a design flaw if you wish. I'll come back to that later, but for now we press Auto Go To and choose the desired celestial object. Dwarf II should know where it's pointing to, but like with tracking, it wants to be sure and will take another image, plate solve it, and in other words figuring out where it's currently looking, and then slew to the desired target automatically. Wait a second and it will recenter, and to be fair, it's amazingly fast. The recentering didn't always work for me, so I had to re-enter the object, but in the end it was calibrated and we were centered, and we adapt the exposure time and the gain, and we are nearly ready to go. Quick word to the exposure time. I would wait a few moments until Dwarf II established the best tracking possible, and then set the exposure to the maximum value without star trails. After that, you raise your gain until your background gets nearly too bright for your target. For me, for example, the exposure of 15 seconds and the gain of 60 worked very well. But that will depend on your location and the light pollution and stuff like that. Under the icon More is not just any other random stuff. No, here's the start of our imaging mode. I don't know why they keep hiding important stuffs behind very small menu icons, but okay. We enter the number of images. Remember, more is better. I took like, let's say, 200 images per object, and 2x2 binning is mandatory by now, but sadly. Display. Stack versus current image, we choose stacked, and format is TIFF. Fits would be great, but as long as this is raw, we can live with it. And that's that. After focus, calibration, auto go to, settings, we hit red and wait. Dwarf II will now take images according to your settings and will stack them together behind the scenes, and the stacked image will appear on screen. That is actually video-assisted astronomy. You watch the image grow, and with every single exposure new data is added to the image, and the image gets more smooth, and you can use those curves to stretch the data. The longer you wait, the more aggressive you can stretch the data because more data is available. What Dwarf II doesn't offer until now is auto stretch, and that is a shame. I mean, stretching works, but again, one button pressed, autofocus, auto stretch, that would be a game changer, because frankly, what does any amateur know about a histogram stretch? They want to press a button, and that's that. But nevertheless, we are imaging astro targets now. There's the number of frames, the number stacked, and they will rise and rise and rise until you reach the final number. All sub-images are saved and we can work with them later, no worries, and we need to. After imaging, you can take astro dark images to get rid of some of the imaging artifacts, but Dwarf II leads you through this process, so I'll skip it for now. And yeah, that's it. We copy all the files from the SD card, and yeah, this won't be a processing tutorial, but I use Deep Sky Stacker DSS, it's free, Serial, it's free, GIMP, this is free, for final stacking and post-processing, and here are the results. This is M1, the Crab Nebula. It's a supernova remnant. It's fuzzy, no colors, but this was only 23 minutes from my Bortle 6 sky with UHC filters, so not bad for that. These are the Pleiades M45 for something like 90 minutes with the UHC filter from my home Bortle 6. You can only see the faint ghost of nebulosity here, but anyway, the stars are a little bit bloated, but that might be just me and my editing skills. My Bortle 6 sky, by the way, is with intense Christmas decoration. The neighbors really love their Christmas decoration, and they may very well do so. This is another target from my home. NGC 896884, the double cluster, at something like 120 minutes with the UHC filter from my Bortle 6. And because I really liked the results so far from my home, I wanted to go further. So I packed my stuff and drove into the void of Lower Saxony. Villages are sparse here, fenlands and marshlands are plenty. It's the southern part of a very big heath area, definitely haunted, but the map showed Bortle 3, so I had to go and test Dwarf under really dark skies.
I mean, freezing weather, crystal clear skies, a dark location with Bortle 3 around-ish, so these should be perfect conditions for Dwarf, and we can really see what it can deliver, what the hardware is capable of. Okay folks, we officially entered nowhere zone. I'm in the middle of the forest. It's kind of creepy actually, so I'm a bit scared. Okay, I arrived. It's super dark here. It's way darker than I expected. Still a bit creepy because I can't see anything. My eyes need to adapt. And yeah, I'm going to set up all the equipment, and we're gonna see what the evening will bring us.
And seriously, I did that just for you folks, so smash that like button. No, I was so afraid. I'm making no jokes here. I had a pack of wolves howling in the distance. But I got my image, alright, and here it is. The famous Orion Nebula M42. Only 100 minutes of data, without any filters, with 15 seconds and gain 60. The core structure is visible, the dust lanes surrounding this beautiful star-forming region in space, and you can see the little companion, and next to them the Running Man Nebula as well. The stars are a little bit bloated. I got the star colors slightly pinkish, whatever I did in post-processing, but I really like that image with the reddish tones inside the nebula and the shadowy loops of dusts here. For me, this proves Dwarf II can deliver great astro images. And even though I got sick the next day, I was able to get 2 hours of data of the Andromeda Galaxy M31 back from my Bortle 6 home sky. That was lazy astro imaging. My daughter brought the Dwarf II outside, I clicked connect, fiddled through the routine, let Dwarf capture the galaxy and never left the sofa. The result is quite impressive. The field of view is wide enough to capture the galaxy entirely, as well as the little companion galaxies M32 and M101. The dust lanes are clearly visible and even some star-forming regions as well. Again, the color is a bit weak, but this is due to only grabbing a few dozens of minutes with 24mm aperture. This is definitely a downside of having a small aperture, but overall, I really like the images. I mean, if you show this image to a friend, hey, look what I captured last night from my sofa, I think they will be impressed. No questions here. Okay, so what else can you image? I mean the moon, of course. Here's our rocky neighbor during twilight, and this is where Dwarf really scores. No alignment, no calibration, use daylight photo mode, point, double tap focus, shoot, finish, couldn't be easier. Same for the sun. Just be careful to put the sun filters on first over both cameras, and then same, point, shoot, maybe settle with a convenient exposure time, and I increased the saturation to bring out the yellows, but that's all. And here are sunspots, darker and cooler areas of the surface of the sun captured through Dwarf from my backyard. The sun, moon, even planets, Jupiter's moons, star cluster, nebula, galaxies. Time to sum this review up. Here are my pros and cons. The pros. Dwarf II is light and mobile. Only one bag fits everything and it weighs only 1.8 kilograms, and that includes everything, even the tripod and the filters. This bag is robust and no, don't throw Dwarf II. Please don't bully the baby telescope, no. Dwarf II can be used in many different situations. Daylight, birds, planes, panoramas and stuff. And at night, stars, star cluster, nebula, galaxies and the other stuff. The battery lasts for several hours and can be recharged very easily. Simply plug USB-C into Dwarf and that's that. Dwarf II is fast. After a few nights, I can set it up in seconds and then it just does its job. It occupies my smartphone though, so that's a pain, but it rewards me with little cool astro images, so it's probably fair. The resulting imaging quality for such a small device is very cool. I like the results and you can definitely use them to get your feet wet in the field of astronomy. For a smart telescope, for like any telescope, Dwarf is very cheap. It costs only $400 for an everything included package. This is some money, but in Astro world this is nearly free. I mean, we have filters alone in this price range, or an adapter for a camera, or I don't know, a rabbit hole. The overall building quality of Dwarf really surprised me. The package was Apple-like, the plastic is very solid, the motors are extremely quiet and smooth, the optics look okay for the price, and the bag, the tripod, everything for under $500 in total, you can't say a word. Heck, even the filters look okay, even though I didn't measure them, but I will. Dwarf II has a great focal length, or let's say field of view for most deep sky objects. Andromeda, the Orion Nebula, they fill the screen. Only planets will be way too small. Dwarf saves the subframes of astro images as separate TIFF files, so you can stack them later with your dedicated software on the PC. This is great and this must never stop. This is crucial to me and others using this device. Okay, the other side. Homework still to do for DWARFLAB. The first 2 points don't really count. Dwarf does still cost around 400 bucks, so for someone new to all this Astro stuff, this might still be a very big pile of money. Luckily though, Dwarf II can perform on several fields, so that flattens that a bit. Dwarf II is not made for planetary imaging because of the focal length. You will be able to see the moons of Jupiter, and that is really cool, but there's no comparison with a dedicated setup for planetary imaging. And while planetary imaging is what brings most people into astronomy, Dwarf starts with the real stuff. I don't know whether this is a pro or a con. But maybe Dwarf II should sell a Barlow adapter for the filter holder. A simple 3x Barlow would do the trick, and that would be awesome! Another small point, please label the solar filters. 1 in 1 million is not a label that newcomers can recognize. The TIFF files are not labeled correctly. I want to import them into DSS and the program should automatically figure out the gain and exposure time and stuff. This must be written into the metadata of the files and that would be cool. Okay, software bug fixing. Sometimes the calibration failed. Unclear of why. Sometimes the go-to wouldn't center the objects. Sometimes the Dwarf II froze, a byte very rarely, and I had to reboot it. Nothing big, just work in progress, but please keep updating the software for a while. Good software maintenance gives the customer a good feeling. Now the major points for this project to truly be a great telescope. Dwarf II has no autofocus. This is, until now, a real problem for easy out-of-the-box usage. Finding focus in Astro is hard, and Dwarf II should make this as easy as possible. Because if you have skipped the focus at daylight, or if you like me messed up everything by accidentally double tapping on the screen, and you have no Jupiter in the night sky, you will have some serious problems finding the right focus point. Modern telescope software like Nina uses automated procedures where the scope shifts the focus ever so slightly and measures the diameter of the stars to figure out the perfect, and I mean perfect, focus automatically. The one button in Astro mode must be the real goal, because everything else frightens people, especially beginners. To argue along similar lines, the entire calibration step must be fully automated. Place dwarf, touch nothing, press start and go. It must be as easy as that. Luckily, this is only software work needed, because the hardware of dwarf is cool enough. How high shall I point dwarf's alt axis during calibration? I don't want to know, and I don't want to care. This continues with the slightly confusing menus. I don't want to click Go to choose the target and then click More to get to the image settings and choose the number of images. How many images shall I take as a beginner anyway? My Google phone, set to Astro mode, just keeps taking frames and frames and frames, and whenever I'm bored or if I'm happy with the result, I stop the process and click Stop. DWARFLAB needs to make it one flow. Dwarf II takes you through the process, place me on flat ground, my calibration is done, what target do you want to visit, and that's that. No manual start or restart or calibration, no ending of go-to or whatever. Dwarf needs to take care of all that plate solving, go-to, focus, alignment, everything, and by itself. It does those individual subroutines already very good, but every subroutine of this needs to be addressed separately from the user. A true smart telescope for beginners needs to be as simple as possible. And here the DWARFLAB folks need to finalize their app design. The telescope itself is really cool. Just streamline the app and you have a superb product. Same goes for visualizing the results, so the stacked image. The histogram tool is cool for folks like me who love Fourier transformations very badly. But newcomers want to click one button and have the auto stretch enabled by default, because what the heck is auto stretch? I want to see the glorious galaxy. Just let Dwarf II automatically do this job and stack and stretch the images like Nina and Deep Sky Stacker do this, and the customers will fall off their chairs. Hey folks, it's post-processing me. DWARFLAB sent me some very interesting update infos just in time. They have been working on the firmware of Dwarf II and already integrated some of the recommendations of the Astro community. Very cool. The new features are go-to for the planets and the moon. So from now on you can directly search for the moon or the planets and maybe use the moons of Jupiter to achieve perfect focus. Cool. Some minor changes to the go-to functionality. So from now on, Dwarf will first slew to the target and then plate solve to see whether the target is right in the center of the screen or not, and maybe re-slew. And that is great because up until now we had some problems if the initial view was obstructed. Dwarf was not able to initially plate solve and then the go-to would fail. This is a great improvement. Most importantly, in Astro mode, they added an unlinked auto stretch to the software. This is super important because, as I said, newcomers don't want to bother with histograms. They want to see the glorious galaxy. And now Dwarf II can take care of this on its own. This is awesome. Even more importantly, they claim that Astro autofocus is under construction. If they can pull this off, this will be a game changer to this project. I'm really looking forward to this update. I'm very pleased with the development so far. As I said, software development is super important. And the fact that Dwarf II listens to the community and already integrated some of the recommendations and missing features is very, very promising. I'm looking forward to testing all the new features on the dark skies rain until now, but I keep you updated. Over and out. Now what? I mean, the final question is, would I recommend this little body to others? Would I even buy it myself, given the pros and the cons and given the $400 on the one hand, but also given the results of the other hand? Yes and no. I mean, it truly depends on what you're aiming for. If you don't have any equipment yet, and you don't mind the $400, you seek for an easy and portable setup, and a little stargazing time with your friends. Though Dwarf II lacks the ability of letting you see through an eyepiece, you can still see fantastic galaxies and nebulas on your smartphone screen, even from inside. No Hubble images though, nothing professional, and some work is still to be done by you, like focusing, so your friends need to be a bit patient, but nothing compare like a full night of dedicated astrophotography. And in the end, those images are your own. Very cool way to step into the world. Comparable systems like Unistellar EV Scope or Vionis Stellina or Vespera are bigger and way more expensive, and thereby Dwarf is a great compromise between price and the results. On the other hand, if you have $400 and you already have a camera system, like your DSLR plus a lens, and you really want to get your feet wet and step into astrophotography with all the side effects like tracking, exposure time, coordinate system, alt-as, etc, you know, that geeky stuff, and you're not afraid to learn a lot, then I would recommend a solid star tracker like this one. Place your camera on top and start exploring the universe. Not easy, not simple, but amazing. Please be aware, this path leads to total bankruptcy. I mean, literally. I just want to mention that here, because there was a major debate point about the upper mentioned smart scopes already on the market. Those telescopes do not intend to replace dedicated astro gear. Obviously, you get way better results spending thousands of bucks on a dedicated system capable of performing well on a single subfield of astronomy. Who would have thought so? Dwarf II is not meant for me as a semi-professional astrophotographer, but for the beginner who wants to show the nearest galaxy to their friends. And truth be told, now that I have the Dwarf baby scope, I will use it a lot as well. And this is mainly due to its flexibility and the easy setup and the portability. It normally costs a fair amount of time and mental energy to set up another imaging rig. Now, while waiting, I can just plug and play the new toy, while waiting for the big guys to finish their jobs, and maybe use this time to try something new with the Dwarf. Or if I go on vacation, I will take Dwarf with me for sure. One small bag, no additional cables, no stuff. My normal setup is in a shed and super stationary, and the portable imaging setup is a mess as well. Camera, scope, car battery, cables, adapters, tripods, collimation, assistant, laptop, focuser, bags, Bartinov mags. Oh boy. I mean, Dwarf can't replace that, by no means, and neither can it produce similar results, so I will go out in the fields with all that stuff. But sometimes something like that is just not feasible. Going on a family trip abroad, for example, I can't take my entire telescope stuff with me. But Dwarf, just toss it into the bag. This is the most important positive factor for me. I can take astro images and I can take them anywhere. If just DWARFLAB works on the recommendations with their app, Dwarf will be a great product overall. That was my take on Dwarf. Do you have your own opinions or stories about Dwarf II or similar smart telescopes? Do you have any further recommendations or wishes to DWARFLAB? Place them down in the comment sections below. I'll try to answer them all. You captured images using Dwarf II? I'd love to see them. Tag me on Twitter or Instagram or here on YouTube. I'm looking forward to seeing your results. Thanks again to DWARFLAB for sending me Dwarf II to play around with it and for answering all my questions like within minutes. Good sign. I will link all the other great reviews about Dwarf II done by other astro folks down in the video descriptions. Please make sure to watch them all. And so that's it, and as always I say, clear skies everyone, until next time here on Catching Photons.